Ambassador, thank you for making the time for this conversation.
You're very welcome.
I spoke recently with Professor Norman Finkelstein, who, as you know, is someone who doesn't hold back his punches. And he said he felt that the situation right now between Israel and Hamas, the Gaza situation, is still closer to the beginning than the end of what is due to happen, which is a very bleak prospect when you think about it. How does that kind of tie in with your own expectations? I mean, it sounds like he thinks there's a long way to go.
I hope that he is not right. We hope that an immediate ceasefire, lasting ceasefire to take place and to stop the carnage and this war of genocide against our people, particularly in the Gaza Strip, and to see the opening of a political horizon. The global picture is demanding that. And by that, I don't mean only governments as we see it, voting in large number in favor of justice for the Palestinian people and having a just solution to the conflict on the basis of the end of occupation and two-state solutions. But also because of the pressure from the hundreds of millions of people in the streets, including in colleges and universities, including a famous one here in New York, Columbia University. All of them are demanding immediate ceasefire, and all of them demanding justice for the Palestinians. So I would say all these things indicate that enough is enough, and there should be a change of course.
I will touch on those points you've raised in just a moment in the interview, but I want to highlight how Ireland, Norway and Spain have now joined a growing list of countries that have recognized a Palestinian state. But there are people asking, to what degree is this simply leaders having to show sympathy or wanting to show sympathy, as opposed to something that might be a deep-seated change in attitude that could actually affect the outcome for the Palestinian people?
We see it as a strong signal of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Having the time of living through this tragedy for 8 months, so a number of countries are demonstrating this solidarity by recognizing the state of Palestine as an investment in peace and an investment in saving the two-state solution. We had at the end of April, beginning of May, the first wave of these recognitions from the Caribbean countries. In fact, yesterday I had to sign with the ambassador of Barbados the mutual recognition and diplomatic relationship between us and them. They were joined by 3 other Caribbean islands, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Bahamas. So all of the states in the Caribbean group of nations, the 14 of them, recognized the state of Palestine. So this wave was followed by another wave of 4 countries in Europe. And we expect more countries in Europe, and then we will move to Asia. 4 countries voted in favor of the resolution in the General Assembly demanding from the Security Council to reconsider the admission of the state of Palestine. Here I'm referring to New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and South Korea. Japan and South Korea are members of the Security Council, and they were among the 12 that voted in favor of recommending the admission of the state of Palestine to the General Assembly.
Similarly, the Palestinian cause is getting greater recognition at the UN, where its ambition to be moved from observer status to an actual state, a member state, is moving up, but the US keeps vetoing it. Now, how can you persuade the US leadership to change this approach to it? And basically, what pressure can you put for that to happen?
Well, there are many things that we are engaged in order to reach the moment, the tipping point, I call it, of finally convincing the United States to stop obstructing our natural and legal right to statehood and membership at the United Nations. The waves that you refer to of recognition, it increases the pressure on the United States, while almost the entire globe is in favor of admitting the state of Palestine to membership. Only the United States is standing on the way. So the more recognition we have, the more waves from European countries, perhaps the wave that I referred to in Asia. So then there will be nothing left in terms of grouping of nations. Western Europe, majority recognizing the state. Eastern Europe, all of them recognizing the state. All of Latin American and the Caribbean, all of the Africans, all of the Asians. Then what is the logic of the United States of continuing to block us? And also the fact that we convinced a large number of Europeans who used to be buying the logic of the United States that the recognition and the admission would come at the end of the process, to saying, let us recognize and admit at the beginning of the process as an investment in peace, and the two sides to negotiate all the outstanding issues such as borders, Jerusalem, refugees, etc.
If you do get that full member status, what real difference do you think it could make to Gaza, the way things have gone?
Well, it is not only Gaza. Gaza is part of Palestine. Gaza is a key component of the land of the State of Palestine. So therefore, to recognize the State of Palestine as it was stipulated in the partition plan of Resolution 181 in 1947, when the UN decided to partition Palestine to two states, now is the time to complete the uncompleted part. The part of Israel coming a state happened. The part that the State of Palestine to be a member at the United Nations is the time is now. So if the United Nations, specifically the Security Council, to remove the obstacle in our path for membership, then the global picture is saying it is not up to Israel to decide the future of the Palestinian people. It is up to the Palestinian people in exercising self-determination, and the international community is saying that it is two-state solution that requires the end of occupation, the admission of the State of Palestine to membership. That would be huge for the Palestinian people, including our people in Gaza.
Sir, going back to the situation in Gaza, President Biden took everyone by surprise when he revealed the three-stage plan by Israel for an end to the war. What was your reaction when you heard that, and what do you think motivated him to take this step?
Well, I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. I think that would be a great question to ask President Biden and his team. But I can tell you, it doesn't make sense to continue this war and the carnage against our people. It doesn't make sense to continue killing children, women, besieging, Gaza Strip, depriving people of food, medicine, water, starving them, no safe place in the Gaza Strip, destroying schools, destroying hospitals. No decent nation or a person of conscience would continue to advocate or support such continuation, regardless of the reasons and the logic behind it. So therefore, it was a matter of time before such ideas to be put on the table, and those ideas were adopted in a resolution yesterday in the Security Council, and it was 14 votes in favor and 1 abstention. Now the issue before us, we need to see the implementation of that resolution and these 3 stages.
From what I understand, though, Ambassador, the full details of that plan have not been made public. Do you have any more knowledge beyond the public revelation of what is involved?
I do not, but I can tell you at least the first phase, it was detailed a lot, and by President Biden, and also saying that Israel accepts that plan, or it is the plan of Israel. He was bold in saying these things. He said it. I don't know why, but I can say that part may be of the reason to make it difficult for Prime Minister Netanyahu to retreat from such ideas. So to have an immediate ceasefire, it is true that it will start with 6 weeks and exchange of prisoners, 600 trucks to enter the Gaza Strip every day to address the humanitarian needs of our people, which means that you have to open all of the land, crossings, and to allow the Palestinian people to return to all parts of the Gaza Strip, and to see the Israeli forces withdrawing initially from the cities and the way of completely out of the Gaza Strip, and not to take an inch of the Gaza Strip under the control of the Gaza Strip. All these things were stipulated in the first phase, which I think they are detailed enough that can allow the parties to begin the implementation, and then the psychology that it will create, hopefully it will not allow for the fighting to continue and to deal with the details of the remaining stages.
There seems now to be, though, a lot of finger pointing, with Israel saying that Hamas has effectively rejected it, while Hamas says it's looking for some alterations because it was just presented cold to it. Where do you think it goes from here, from the Hamas side?
Let us see, once we start the process of implementation, including the involvement of Egypt and Qatar, who are, close friends, or, they reflect the position and mediate between Hamas and Israel, and the United States, a very close friend of Israel as well. So it is the duty of those guarantors, the three parties, to see the beginning of the implementation, and we will see who is ready to be involved in the implementation and who is the true obstacle and the one that wishes to continue the war.
Well, there are the critics of Israel who say that the reason Israel has announced Hamas rejected it is because it gives them a chance to back out of the plan to some degree, or at least continue its attacks on Gaza while the plan is being discussed. I mean, do you share that kind of skepticism?
I think that there are many analysts and political specialists that come to the conclusion that Prime Minister Netanyahu does not care about the hostages. He is willing, to destroy Palestine and Israel altogether for the survivalship of his political future and not to go to jail. I think that he is the one who has the most from losing if the war to stop and if ceasefire to take place. Therefore, he is the one that has the motives and the desire to find ways, excuses, to blame others in order to continue implementing his true intentions of continuing the war until the American elections.
What was going through your head when you heard the news about the hostage release through the IDF's actions, that they got 4 hostages out, but at such a price, nearly 300 Palestinians dead according to reports?
What goes also through my head, the thousands of Palestinians who are really suffering immensely in Israeli jails, tortured and mistreated, including children, women, and a variety of others. A cynical person said, look at those 4, they left with, that as if, that they were in a beauty shop, while the Palestinians are suffering under torture, deprivations, solitary confinement, children in jail, women in jail. So, but I believe all those who have loved ones in prison, they love to see their loved ones released. That is not only applicable to the Israelis, it is applicable to us, the Palestinians. We love to see the thousands of Palestinian prisoners to be released.
If there is a hostage exchange under this ceasefire proposal, would you expect the jailed Palestinian leader Marwan Barghouti to be released? He's one who is often seen as someone who could bridge the Hamas-Fatah gap, that he could even be a successor to Mahmoud Abbas as president.
There is a local, meaning in the Middle East, and globally speaking, desire to see the leader Marwan Barghouti to be released from jail. And I hope, and sincerely hope, that he and all other prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, to be released. They deserve to join their loved ones.
Do you see him, though, Barghouti, as that kind of bridge kind of figure? He was with Fatah. He's shown that he can also deal with Hamas. Hamas also seems to give him some support. Do you need that kind of bridging figure, considering the gap between Fatah and Hamas in so many ways?
I don't know him personally, but I know that once we have all the prisoners released, including Marwan Barghouti, we, the Palestinian people, are capable of dealing with our own internal issues, and we will do everything possible in order really to unify our ranks and to pursue peace based on justice between us and the Israelis, and that would require the implementation of the global consensus on ending the occupation and the two-state solution, in which our state will be based on the 4th of June of 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. There is a global consensus on that. The US administration and their representatives, they keep reiterating that, and now we're telling them we need to move from the reiterating the obvious into the implementation of the two-state solution.
Now, one thing that Israel always counters with is that Hamas has this mission for the elimination of Israel, and it's, you know, it has a genocidal approach to the Israeli people. Yahya Sinwar, who's believed to be the architect of the October 7th attacks, seems to be a man making a lot of the decisions on what's going on right now in Hamas, on Hamas's side. What do you make of that man and how things might work out with people like him?
I don't know the man. I cannot comment on his makeup and his decision-making processes. But I can tell you that the action of Israel in killing more than 37,000 Palestinians, 70% of them children and women, and the maiming and injuring more than 80,000, and having 20,000 orphans, and the destruction almost of all of the Gaza Strip, destructions of our schools, our hospitals, our infrastructures, and depriving our people from food, medicine, and water, using starvation as weapon of war, which is a war crime. That behavior cannot be justified in any form or logic, and Israel should be condemned for that, and those responsible should face accountability and face the system of justice that we globally agreed to, whether it is the ICJ or the ICC.
On that note, the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice have both received a lot of criticism for the way they have responded to the situation in Gaza. And yet they did release apply for arrest warrants for both the leadership of Israel and Hamas under their jurisdiction. In your eyes, what relevance do those two courts actually have?
I think that they have a lot of relevance. First of all, we did not create them. The ICJ was created by the victors of World War II, which, by the way, it was the majority of nations in the Western Hemisphere. They created that highest court in the globe, the legal arm of the United Nations, to deal with the disputes and issues from the legal framework of the ICJ.
I understand that.
Now,
but
the ICC, it was another product that was created by all of us, but in reality, the majority, the European countries and the West. And that court came into being after Rwanda and the other crimes against humanity and war crimes to go after individuals. The ICJ deals with states. The ICC deals with individuals. And in this case, the ICC stipulate its position on the concept of complementarity, meaning any country that cannot trial criminals of big crimes or is unwilling to do so, then the ICC will step in order to go after those criminals so that justice can prevail. In this case, Israel is not party to the ICC. We are a party to the ICC. So we took the case and we asked them, come and investigate war crimes and crimes against humanity, including the continuous war crime of settlements. Because from the perspective of the Rome Statute, which is the constitution of the ICC, or the Fourth Geneva Convention, both say it is a war crime and it is illegal to transfer population from the occupying power to the land of the occupied people. So therefore, we are saying, come and investigate these crimes and find who are committing these crimes, and we give you the full authority in the land of the state of Palestine to do so. Israel is not giving them the same right.
I hear what you're saying, Your Excellency. Well, I'm going back to the question of how effective do you think those two courts are for you?
There's always room for improvement of their effectiveness. They tend to be slow, especially the ICC, and we've been working with them for almost 10 years. And until now, the moment that we see that they issued warrant of arrest for the Israeli, Prime Minister and the War Minister.
Civilians on both sides of this conflict have suffered, and I think sometimes when we are listening to the news, we're talking about the numbers, we're talking about large numbers, obviously in the case of the Palestinians, the displaced, the hostages taken and so on. We often forget that there are individual lives involved in this conflict on both sides. And I wonder when you, I'll be speaking, for example, to the family of an Israeli hostage later. And I wonder, when you think about the Israeli side, what goes through your head when it comes to these individuals, as opposed to the politics of the state?
Well, let me just first of all say that history did not start on October 7, as correctly stated by the Secretary General of the United Nations. We've been living as Palestinians this miserable life as humans and as individuals for the last 76 years. And people were not interested about the suffering of individuals during all this period of time. They started talking about the suffering of individuals after October 7. Let me just say in this connection, we are against harming innocent civilians by anyone under any conditions. But that should not be only restricted to the suffering of the Israeli individuals. We've been suffering tremendously, including during this war on the Gaza Strip. The suffering is beyond imaginations of what is really happening, of genocide to our people in the Gaza Strip. By many, they say that they haven't seen such cruelty and suffering of people since World War II as they see now happening to the Palestinian people. And if you are going to interview individuals from Israeli families, we brought about a dozen individuals from Palestinian families who have almost all members of their families obliterated and killed in the Gaza Strip. Suffering is not restricted or the monopoly of one group. Suffering is suffering for all humans, and they should not be suffering, and those who are causing the suffering should be punished.
My objective is to speak to both sides, Ambassador, so it's not, the reason I asked that question is because we do speak obviously to the Palestinian side. The conflict, as you say, or the situation having lasted now 76 years means it's very hard to find Palestinians who've not been affected directly. What's the case when it comes to you? What have you experienced personally?
Well, I had members of my extended family that lost life in the Gaza Strip, and also all along since the Nakba, I have members of my extended family that lost lives, were imprisoned, were expelled, became refugees, suffered immensely, and continuing to suffer. For me, my father and my mother and all of my siblings, we did not spend one day in our life all together. We tried to do it the end of the 70s in Ohio for the wedding of the late younger brother of mine. My father died before that happened, and we never implemented that dream of spending one day, all of us, my father, my mother, and all of my siblings. It did not happen.
And I presume you, through your relationship with people in the Palestinian areas, you know a lot of people who've gone through a lot as well.
Absolutely. And when I say that we have about 20,000 orphans, all of their immediate families were eliminated. So it is the collective responsibility of the Palestinian nation to take care of those individuals that there are our children. And it adds to other tragedies that we're facing in terms of the large number who have lost limbs, who have, tremendous psychological trauma and distress. So that we have a lot of repair to do. We have a lot of reconstruction to do. We have a lot to put the life of our people back together, particularly in the Gaza Strip. We have a huge tall order of things to do, but we need to have a ceasefire in place to allow us to begin that process.
By some accounts, it's going to take decades to get Gaza even remotely habitable. It's going to be an extended suffering, presumably, then.
I totally agree. It was not easy for us when my parents and my relatives were telling us the suffering that we went through. during the first Nakba. It seems that the suffering that we're going through now, particularly in the Gaza Strip, it's even beyond the catastrophe of the first Nakba.
So it doesn't really end with a ceasefire then, does it?
The ceasefire is the beginning of the reparation. And if you ask me, am I optimistic or pessimistic? I like the answer of Desmond Tutu when he was asked that question in the darkest moments of apartheid in South Africa. He said, I don't know whether I'm optimistic or pessimistic, but I can tell you I am prisoner of hope. I am prisoner of hope.
What is it about the Palestinian people, Ambassador, that makes them so resilient? I mean, 3/4 of a century, this has been a struggle for your people, and even people are shocked at how resilient the Hamas fighters have been. Everyone thought Israel will go in and this is just done, but it's dragged out. What is it that you feel is at the heart of the resilience of the Palestinian people?
I guess in history they say people who are exposed to untold suffering, something grow in them to make them sustain and endure the pain, and it creates the genius in them to try to excel to unexceptional levels. One professor asked me that question one time: what is so special about you that you are so resilient? I said, I can tell you that usually we kids in high schools or in college, normally most kids, they study all night long for the exam. We, the Palestinian people, have final examination every day.
Ambassador, have you found yourself treated any differently by your peers at the UN due to what's been happening? People are starting to recognize the plight of your people in a wider sense, because it wasn't necessarily reported much here. Have you had more prominence, more engagement, more sympathy at the United Nations because of what's been happening?
Yes, but I can tell you that our delegation is one of the most respected and admired delegation at the UN. And we are treated very well by our colleagues. And we accept the judgment of our colleagues of our behavior and our conduct in serving our people.
It's been interesting seeing, you referred to this earlier, the student protests. Were you at all surprised with the scale of which they took, at the scale of which they took place, and how broadly across the world?
No, I wasn't surprised, especially in the United States. In the United States this time, in comparison to what happened during the anti-war movement, during the war in Vietnam, or during the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, in those two cases, the question of Palestine was not included in the agenda. Since the movement of the social movement of Black Lives Matter and the way it galvanized all social forces of Afro-Americans, Latino Americans, trade unions, students, Arab Americans, Palestinian Americans, Muslim Americans. So the movement was ready to embrace any new social justice issue. So when the Gaza issue came around, the environment in the United States was ready to embrace justice for the Palestinian people. That was never the case since 1948.
A major turning point?
This time it was different time, it was by accident. And this time it embraced the question of Palestine as a burning issue, as the top issue for this movement. Therefore, it is affecting things in the United States. In this connection also, I express our appreciation to the fact the majority of Jewish students in campuses are part of this movement for justice for the Palestinian people.
I'll get onto that in a second, but how did you react at the way the authorities handled it?
Well, see, the authorities always handle, social movements with toughness, and they don't handle them with kindness. You remember during the war in Vietnam what happened in the Chicago Democratic Convention. And also I remember I was a student and I used to participate in demonstrations for civil rights movement, and for support to dismantle the apartheid system. The security forces, they are hostile to the opposition, expressions of objecting to certain things. So this time it's the same. This time it was even more belligerent, especially in attacking the encampments of students at Columbia universities and other universities.
Did that raise the support, you think, even more, Ambassador?
I think it does.
Okay.
I was a student, during Kent State, events during the anti-war movement. Of course, that was a unique event in which the National Guards came and 4 students were killed. And similar thing happened in Jackson State. So these things were very rare in comparison to what happened in many universities this time. The police forces attacked campuses, but luckily nobody was killed or harmed.
I would like you to address the counter-argument often put forward by Israeli spokespeople that say this is all anti-Semitism. And there are reports of anti-Semitism rising in America anyway, but that they say this is all about an anti-Semitic movement.
It is not, because that in these Ivy League schools, I think it is a known fact that there is a large number of Jewish students and large number of faculty, Jewish faculties. So to accuse those of being anti-Semitic does not make sense. But it is becoming fashionable for Israeli leaders. Anyone that criticizes Israel, because they're running out of options, now they are saying anyone who criticizes Israel is anti-Semitic. This is false, and this is not receiving traction from serious, corners in the globe.
A lot of people have been surprised with how much protest there has been within Israel itself to demand a ceasefire. So people in Israel protesting against the Israeli government.
Are they anti-Semitic?
No, well, I was going to ask you though, in the case of the Palestinians in Gaza, could there be anything like that where they protest against Hamas to say we want a ceasefire to end this situation as well?
I think that there is no safe place in the Gaza Strip for people to be able even to survive, let alone to be able to conduct political activities. They are trying to protect their children. In the case of a neighborhood around Rafah, a refugee camp was attacked and tents were bombarded and a large number of people were killed. In the case of the Nuseirat refugee camp, just a few days ago, when the Israelis were justifying the freeing of the 4 hostages, in the process they killed 274 individuals. The pictures by media of bodies in the streets of Palestinians killed left and right is so horrific, and it is another massacre that need to be investigated, and those who are responsible for committing it to face justice.
Is this the end of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's political career?
I believe so. If we have a ceasefire in place, most likely he will end up in jail by the Israeli side. And I think that part of the reason why he doesn't want to stop this war, because he knows the majority of the Israelis will go after him for being responsible for what happened on the 7th of October.
What sort of leadership do you see in a post-conflict environment for both Israel and also for the Palestinians in Gaza?
For Israel, we hope that we'll see leaders like Rabin, who are ready to be brave enough to be ready and willing to engage in negotiation with us to the implementation of the withdrawal timetable of the land that they occupied in 1967, so that we allow for the state of Palestine to enjoy its freedom and sovereignty, and to implement the 2-state solution as the solution for us and for them.
Ambassador, do you believe that opinions about Gaza in the US are better reflected in the actions of the politicians or what's happening on the street with the demonstrations, for example?
I think what is happening in the street is more accurate in empathizing with the pain of the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. The politicians tend to inject into it political calculations, so therefore it might not have the same vividness and empathy that you would see it from the people in the street and the students on campuses. But for us as politicians, we have to take into account all these elements and try to make some sense out of them. We have to deal with the representatives of the administration and the political configuration in this country, because they are the ones who make the decisions. And also we have to appreciate what is really happening in the streets and campuses, and to hopefully see it affecting the policymakers and the decision makers, and to integrate both of them in some kind of a creative way so that we have something meaningful for the Palestinian people.
You've been in the US a long time. I wonder, do you get the sense that this is really the most distinct change in attitude in the US over all this time you've been here?
I haven't seen something like this related to Palestine since I arrived to this country a long time ago. This is a unique, different moment in terms of the articulation or the changes of the opinion and the mood of the American people. That's why we believe it is a historic moment. It wasn't planned to come so soon, but we are delighted that it is here, and I think responsibility would require from all of us to try to utilize it to the maximum so that can contribute to putting an end to the tragedy of the Palestinian people and actualizing the two-state solution as a reality on the ground.
Considering it has been going on for 3/4 of a century, I know you describe yourself as a prisoner of hope, as has been quoted by Desmond Tutu when asked whether he's optimistic or pessimistic about the situation he faced in South Africa. What is it, though, about you that keeps you so optimistic and resilient?
Well, many things. First of all, I'm a Palestinian. We have a great people. I am so proud of the fact to be a Palestinian, and also I am so proud to be at this historical moment representing the cause of Palestine in the most important international organization. It is the Academy of the Fine Art of Politics and Diplomacy, the United Nations. By luck, I am assuming that position. I am a son of a Palestinian refugee and steel worker in Ohio. It's unique to have these background. Often others, they would brag about their degrees and the schools that they went to, although I did fulfill the desire of my father to become a doctor. I have a PhD, so that was fulfilled. But yet in the same time, I do not forget the most important part of my credentials, which is my background as a son of a refugee and a son of a steel worker in Ohio. So that I learned a lot in this environment. I learned the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all of them. And what gives me strength to continue serving the Palestinian people in the best possible way is I am excessively in the camp of justice for all people, and definitely for the Palestinian people. And the environment at the UN is an environment of people who went through similar things that we went through. The great majority of nations are nations that they fought for liberation from colonialism, oppression, and denial of rights. So they can understand our fate. And I am an optimistic person in nature, and I love people, and I think I have great relationship with my colleagues, and I am grateful for all the support that they give us at the UN. It gives me all the energy that I need to fight harder for this noble, just cause.
Ambassador Riyad Mansour, thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.